With all that said, let's get right to the main topic here and go to our guests on the line, waiting back there in the green room. Ryan, do we have him on? Chris, Duane, are you here?
Yeah, I am. How are you?
How you doing, Chris? Thanks for joining us tonight. I think
Good. Got me all pumped up.
Hey, listen, you're right on point to what I've been talking about for quite some time now, and it's frightening to me that so many people are in the dark about so many things that should be obvious, but when you sit down, then I shouldn't be so surprised, because this is what the 99% is supposed to be, in the dark and not really aware of what's going on, because that's what keeps the 1% where they are. They don't want people better educated or really aware of what's going on. They want to keep them in the positions they are and hold them back.
That's right. Yes.
You have this book out called Thrivalist.
Yes.
I want you to tell my listeners just the overall view of this book, because I think it addresses so many issues that we've been talking about here for weeks now, and it really touches on each of them in some bit or piece, in some way or manner, that I think is very informative. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Sure. Well, I think the first part is that you have to realize that we are essentially controlling ourselves. The 1% is not the problem. It's us. We're empowering them. They don't control us. We're the ones that volunteer to get into debt. We're the ones that volunteer to get in their corporations. We're the ones that volunteer to go to their corporate schools. We're the ones that watch their TV. We're the ones that join their armies. We are the masters. We are the problem and the solvers of our situation, which is great, because I think most of the time we're given this situation where it's this hopeless battle against very powerful, rich people with all the political power and all the government monitoring and all that other stuff. And at the end of the day, we need to stop worrying about things outside of our control and start focusing on the things inside of our control. And, I went through many years going through the same thing that everybody else does. I call it the 5 stages of awakening, where you snap out of denial. And when you snap out of denial, you go through the anger phase where you're pissed off and, you feel bad that you were lied to. You feel bad that, you were scammed into this thing. And then you go into the bargaining phase where you start doing a lot of research and trying to figure out, which side is what, and ruining Christmas parties, talking about the Federal Reserve and 9/11 and all that other stuff. And then finally you slip into depression because all your friends and family think that you're nuts and the problems are so big and you don't see a solution. And I wasn't able to get to the final phase of acceptance until I started to realize, yeah, the world is screwed up, but my world doesn't have to be screwed up. And
that's right.
As soon as I stopped focusing on the emotional issues outside of my control and started focusing logically on the things I could do and make incremental positive changes every day in my own personal life, starting with my mindset, my friends, my assets, and what I do with my life, those 4 things, I was able to get out of that funk and start really making some positive changes, so much so that I think it's a roadmap for humanity to come out of this much stronger and better than where we are today.
No, I think it's right what you're saying, that the control is in your own power. It's in your grasp. You control your own destiny. And the thing is, people operate so often out of fear, out of the unknown, and basically being in this haze or this fog that they don't think it's within their ability to make change, but it is. For our listeners out there, of course, this is the Adam Thompson Show. You can visit us at www.attorneyadamthompson.com. There you'll have our links to Facebook, Twitter, everywhere else. And we're speaking tonight with Christopher Dunn. If you don't know him, go to the Internet, look him up at Don't Tread on Me. Chris is a financial and investing expert and founder of the Sons of Liberty Academy. He's a former Marine, a venture capitalist, and he became a self-made millionaire by age 30. Those of you who do follow Chris and those of you who want to learn how to follow Chris, there's no better place to do it than YouTube. Go to his channel, The Greatest Truth Never Told. I believe it has over 5 million different views and people subscribing to it on a regular basis since it came out around a year ago. A lot of good information there to get different points of view and different parts of the discussion. So getting back to what we're talking about, I mean, in some of the stuff that I read from your book that really interests me in particular is just how basically, if you look at the government as an overall system and how it works, And you look at like a person like Bernie Madoff, who openly ripped people off, ran an open Ponzi scheme, and when he got busted, basically made no apologies about it and was basically saying, yeah, I ran a Ponzi scheme, I got rich off of it, but hey, this is what's going on all around us. And basically, our entire system, the whole government, is basically some huge Ponzi scheme. And I opened the show talking about Social Security, but it's everything, the banking system, healthcare, taxes on taxes on taxes. I mean, speak a little bit about that, because I know you must share the same view.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was very fortunate to make a lot of money very early on in my life, but I had a realization right after I hit this milestone that everybody in America wants to get to, is to be a millionaire. As soon as I got there, I realized I didn't know what money was, or how I got so rich so fast, or why other people didn't have it. And I came to the starting realization that money is debt and debt is money. Those that create debt create money, and those that pay off debt destroy money. And it was no wonder I became so successful, because all I did was create debt in my business every day. I created tens of millions of dollars every day, every month of debt, and I got first crack at it. So, you know, when people go buy cars or houses, they're not paying cash for them. They're paying it in loans. And if you take out a $30,000 loan on a car, that's creating $30,000 worth of debt. The crazy thing about this is that that's how our money system, that's how money is created in this system. And those that create the debt get to take all that profit immediately. Whereas you may take 5 years to pay off a car, I get to take all that profit immediately. You go buy a house for, $250,000, the builder gets to take $50,000 profit right away. It may take you 30 years or never to pay it off, but the builder gets to take it right away. So we were in a paradigm where we had all these baby boomers who were in their peak earning years creating a massive amount of debt, and here I was, satisfying it. And I saw to myself, I said, this cannot end well, because the baby boomers are going to exit their peak earning years, no longer be able to take amount of debt. And I saw that my generation was already broke with trillion-dollar student loans, in an ever-worsening economy. And that really scared me, because I was just becoming a newborn father, and until I made that realization, I had to make some serious changes in my life. And that happened way back in 2005, and I've been on this path now for 8 years. And I'm a much stronger and better person now than I am, and I'm trying to reach out and lay a trail for others to follow.
Well, you're pretty certain, and all your writings and all your videos and your book in particular really speak about how you're pretty certain the U.S. economy is going to collapse. Tell my listeners why you think this is going to happen. What are the main points? If you had to point to 3 reasons why you think this is going to happen, tell us.
Well, once you realize that debt is money, and when you create debt, you create money, you understand that we have a debt-based paradigm of a monetary system. So that means for every $1 billion that comes into existence, there's $1 billion worth of debt. But the crazy thing is, when you bring that $1 billion worth of dollars into the economy, the interest is not there. So every year, and this is a fact, I don't care if you're a Harvard economist, Nobel laureate, or whatever, the fact of our way of life is that every year we have to create more debt in excess of the debt and interest accrued the year before, or the whole system collapses. And for many years that worked great, because we had corporations in the 50s and 60s and 70s creating corporate debt when the consumers wouldn't do it, and then in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, the consumers, 70% of the economy created massive amount of debt, buying houses and second homes and cars and student loans and all this other stuff. And now we've gotten to the point where the consumers, the real people, don't want to take on any more debt. They realize that this is not a game that they can afford to play. They get hurt in the stock market, the housing bubble, and now this 5-year-long recession that has never ended since 2008. So all that's left is now the Federal Reserve and the government to create debt. And they're going to continue to print money until the dollar itself has no value whatsoever. And that will lead to a hyperinflation. And it is a mathematical certainty. As the amount of debt increases, all we need is a little pickup in interest rates, and we'll get to a point where all the income taxes in the United States won't even be enough to pay for the interest on the debt that we owe. And we'll reach a hockey stick moment where they'll continue to try to keep this game going by printing more and more money. You heard about this QE and taper, they're never going to end. They will always continue to print money because no one in the world, not even China or Japan, are buying our debt anymore. It's the Federal Reserve.
And that's a whole other topic when we get into the Federal Reserve, because a lot of people out there don't understand the whole banking system, how it works, and the creation of the Federal Reserve. If you could just tell my listeners a little bit about the Federal Reserve and what that really is, so they really understand this.
What a scam this is. So, and you guys can look all this stuff up. This has been well written about. Probably the most famous book is called The Creature of Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. But back in 1913, 100 years ago, the richest European and American families in the world put together a cartel of banks. The Federal Reserve is completely privately owned. It is not owned by the government. It's not even an agency of the government. And any, the statutes above it are purely
it's kind of like the Vatican. They're under their own rules and their own authority.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're there to regulate themselves and create that. And Congress gave up the authority to coin and value, therefore, the money supply. And these bankers know that if you give them the control of the money supply, they own the world. You know, I mean, literally,
they're setting the rates when markets go up and down, when inflation goes up and down, interest rates go up and down.
It's all a game. So think about this. This is one of those realizations that I had. I said, how is it possible that every single person I know is in debt, every corporation I know is in debt, every small business I know is in debt, every school system I know is in debt, every county, state, local, federal government in the entire world is in debt? Everybody's in debt. How is that possible? Well, it's because all of the debt is ultimately owned by the world's central banks. And the world's central banks are owned by these very wealthy families, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Schiffs, Kuhn, Loeb, Seligman. All these guys own these banks, and they literally own the world's debt. They own the world. And, you know, it freaked me out that there's families out there who are literally trillionaires. I mean, you know, you think Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, they're nothing. They don't own the world's central bank. They don't own the nation's debts. And it freaked me out for a while until I realized, you know what? They're not forcing me to go into debt. They're not forcing me to go work in their corporations. They're not even forcing me to go in their military. I joined the Marines willingly. I sacrificed myself to go in there. So as soon as you start realizing that, yeah, the world's screwed up, but I have it within my power to see the world clearly and then start taking logical action to extricate myself in thought, in friends, in careers, and assets. And it's very simple to get out of it once you see the trick.
So now, let me ask you. I know you're pretty certain that we're going to have this economic collapse. What are the signs that are going to show us, and how close are we to it?
Honestly, we've been going through it since 2008. If you look at any of the congressional or Federal Reserve statements in 2008, we were within hours of the entire Western banking system collapsing. I mean, there was trillions of dollars coming out of the money market system, and if the Fed wasn't there to back it up and print all this money and bail out everybody on earth, not even U.S. banks, they were bailing out the Bank of South Korea in the middle of the night with a couple $1 billion here. We were literally within hours. So what I phrased 2008 was an institutional crisis. It was Lehman Brothers, AIG, General Motors. It was all these big bad bets, Freddie Mae, Fannie Mac, all the bad mortgages, all this stuff. All those bad debts that created all this money were worth nothing. They were just printing garbage money out of thin air, and those debts need to be paid back. So the Federal Reserve printed up trillions upon trillions of dollars. The $800 billion that they got from Congress was levered into the system into $8 trillion almost overnight. The Federal Reserve had a $16 trillion, and this is Bloomberg reported, $16 trillion slush fund that they used to prop up all these banks and stuff. So in 2008, we had an institutional crisis, okay? The sovereign nations, the taxpayers, and the central banks of the world sucked up all the risks, all the bad debts, and put everything onto the backs of the nations and the currencies themselves, okay? So for the last 5 years, we've been living in this la-la land where, Uncle Sam and the bankers create all this money out of thin air. Well, the problem now is that none of the problems have gotten better. None of the banks' balance sheets are systemically better. The economy is worse today than it was in 2008. We have 46 million people on food stamps. The unemployment numbers are bogus. It's probably closer to 20%, if not higher. Now
Things are just a complete mess. That's the easiest way to say it. Things are a mess. So what happens when this takes place? When we finally go off that fiscal cliff, what's going to happen?
What you saw in 2008, whatever impact 2008 had, it's going to be magnitudes worse, because all of the risk now is not at the institutional level of a puny billion-dollar corporation and a few bad layoffs. It is now at the risk of the actual currencies themselves, the national debts of the world. Japan's got $1 quadrillion worth of yen debt. I mean, it's an astronomical number. And what is going to end up happening is that the currencies themselves, everything that we do in our lives has to do with the dollar. Without the dollar working, you don't have food, you don't have fuel, you don't have payrolls, you don't have a job, you don't have gas in your car, and you don't have lights going on in your house. Currency fails, the entire market fails. And you're not going to get a good warning about it. You may get a hiccup of a couple days, but I can tell you what, as soon as whatever the next financial crisis starts, it's going to be the big one, and it's going to affect every single aspect of your life. And unless you're aware and prepared of this, by having yourself as far out of the system, money out of the bank, having a store of food, having water, having gold and silver and guns and good friends and real skills to produce real wealth, you're going to be up shit's creek. And
that's my next question to you. What do you do to prepare for this? If it's coming and it's close and it's right around the corner, as a person listening out there who says, you know what, these guys are making sense what they're saying, and I do think there's a lot of validity to this, what do they do to prepare to survive after this happens?
Listen, I was in the Marine Corps, and the number one thing I learned was improvise, adapt, and overcome. You have to get out of this mindset that you have to wait until somebody tells you that it's okay to do it. You need to start looking out for yourself. I tell people, start looking at the world logically. Start thinking for yourself. I created the sonsoflibertyacademy.com for people to start extricating their minds out of this system. I'd much rather have somebody who has no assets, no skills, but has a clear sense of where the world's going. They'll be able to meddle through anything that goes along. So number one, you have to get rid of toxic thoughts. You have to start learning to think for yourself, asking questions. You said before, ask questions, ask more questions. I tell people, listen to all and follow none. You need to start thinking for yourself and start getting out of there. The number two thing you need to do is start looking at your immediate surroundings. If you are if you're in an urban area that's highly dependent on a constant inflow of capital, energy, and food, I highly suggest you get out of there, because those places that are usually the best places that the dollar is working are going to be the absolute worst places when the dollar collapses.
So we're talking about getting off the grid and be self-sufficient.
Not necessarily off the grid. I mean, I still have a house with lights and stuff like that, but you certainly do not. Listen, I lived in New Jersey. I moved out of the New York, New Jersey area. I think Southern California is going to be a mess. I think Southern Florida is going to be a mess. I think Chicago is going to be even more of a mess. Any urban area in the country is going to be a mess, because you have far too many people packed in together who are totally unprepared, who don't think for themselves, who probably are more aggressive and narcissistic and not have a community sense. And I give you the example of Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina whacks out New Orleans, and you hear all sorts of looting and rioting and all sorts of nastiness. Well, I tell you what, when the Midwest,
when the power goes and the fuel goes and the food and water's gone, it's going to be complete chaos.
Yep.
Chris?
And the worst part is there's no cavalry coming. Like, it's literally going to affect every country in the world, within a few days. Like, at least with Katrina, you knew that somebody was going to end up coming, the National Guard. No, everybody's going to be affected. The dollar collapses, everybody gets affected.
With little or no time to prepare. Chris, I wish we could continue this for much longer. Our show's extended to an hour very soon, but we are out of time. Everybody, I recommend you go. Look up, again, so everybody, again, is Chris Duane. Look him up on YouTube. He has over 5 million hits on his YouTube channel, The Greatest Truth Never Told. Look up his book, Thrivalist. It is a good read. And also look him up to find out about the Sons of Liberty Academy. Chris, thank you for being with us. Again, I want to enlighten everybody out there to listen, and remember, ask questions, look into things, challenge what you hear and what you're told. The media is out there to market and make money. It is a money-making venture. The media out there is mass-controlled by corporations. They are just doing what they're told to do and promoting what they're told to promote. Okay? Get answers yourself by looking things up yourself, researching things yourself. Till next time, everybody. This has been the Adam Thompson Show. Remember, always think outside the box.